A warning from the universe. Death is approaching Sagittarius and a battle is about to begin. There are days when you wake up and realize you are no longer the same person. Not because something obvious just happened, but because a part of you has been quietly falling away for days, and today, you finally see it. It's like something is shifting in the air, but you can't name it. Maybe you've been through too many ups and downs. Maybe you once loved deeply, gave your all to something you believed was worth it, only to receive a cold silence in return. And you ask yourself, is this the end? But today, I'm here to tell you this: no, this is not the end. This is only the first warning from the universe. A sign that something much bigger is approaching. Not death as we usually imagine it, but the death of a part of your old self. A part that is too tired of pretending to live up to expectations. A part that hasn't dared to dream of freedom for far too long. And if you are a Sagittarius, or carry the energy of this zodiac sign, then this warning is not a coincidence. The universe is whispering to you that a battle is about to take place. Not with anyone else, but with yourself. With compromise. With the limitations you've grown used to enduring. With the pain you've locked away. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to remind you, you are chosen. And this battle, if you dare to step into it, will be the door that opens to the greatest destiny of your life. In the next 30 minutes, I will share with you the signs from the stars. The silent movements that are shifting the axis of Sagittarius's fate. The way a spiritual death can become the fire of rebirth. And if what I say touches you, leave a declaration, for yourself, for the universe, and for others walking the same path. Write this: I am ready to step into the destined battle of my life. Because sometimes, just one sentence can open a door. And maybe, today is the day you stop turning back, to begin living as if destiny is calling your name. I used to believe that life only changes when we face a shattering event. Something big, something painful, something clear. But after all these years of watching the current of life flow, after thousands of natal charts I've read, after hundreds of nights sitting quietly under the stars, wondering why even the strongest people eventually break, I've come to understand. What transforms a person most deeply isn't what is loud. It's what is quiet. One day, you wake up and feel that you are no longer yourself. There is no specific reason. No one has betrayed you. Nothing is clear. But you know, something inside you has died without your knowing. And that is a truth no one teaches you. A death without a funeral, without tears, without farewells. It's the death of the part of you that once believed in beautiful things. Once gave your whole heart to an ideal. Once believed that love could heal every wound. If you are a Sagittarius, or carry that energy, you know what I'm saying. Because you weren't born to live halfway. You live with your soul, not just with your logic. You love with the whole sky, not just a few messages. You came into this world not to merely survive, but to find something great. Something worth living and dying for. But life isn't as simple as an adventure. Sometimes, what you find instead are wounds too deep. The coldness of those who once promised never to leave. The mocking words aimed at the honest heart you once held with pride. And so, little by little, you stop dreaming. You stop sharing what you believe in. Little by little, you stop being yourself. Not because you changed, but because you're tired. Tired of constantly fighting the world's doubts. Tired of always having to be optimistic, while no one truly cares how you're doing. But there's something you, a Sagittarius, must remember: your soul cannot sleep for too long. You can pretend to be fine. You can smile at the world. But you cannot lie to yourself. And when that sleeping part begins to stir, the universe will send you a warning. Not to frighten you, but to remind you, It's time to return to your true essence. It's time to stop living for what is no longer worthy. It's time for the weary part of you to die, so that the stronger, clearer, more grounded part can be reborn. I don't say this to you as an outsider. I speak as someone who has walked through the dark without a single light. I was once lost. I too have spent hours in silence, wondering if there was anything left to believe in. And in those near-breaking moments, I began to hear my own voice. Not the one in my head, but the voice of my soul, the one I had ignored for far too long. It wasn't loud. It wasn't powerful. But it was so real that it brought me to tears. And that was when I knew, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new, even if it arrived in the shape of collapse. The death that the universe sends is not to end your journey. It's to end what is no longer you. It doesn't take away hope. It only strips away illusion. And when you can let go of those illusions, you will see real light. A light that doesn't come from outside, but from the very heart that once hit bottom and still chose to keep beating. If you're feeling like everything is falling apart, if you're so tired that you no longer want to try, allow yourself to sit down and breathe. Not to surrender, but to begin. Because sometimes, you have to stop resisting to be lifted. You have to stop searching to be found. You have to stop trying to be someone to return to yourself. As a Sagittarius, you were born with the mission to seek truth and liberation. You are not just a dreamer. You are a seeker. One brave enough to walk deep into the forest of the mind to find answers. And you will never truly be happy if you're not living in alignment with what you believe. That's why every time you have to pretend, every time you endure insincere relationships, every time you accept limitations that don't belong to you, you feel like you're dying, piece by piece. That is not weakness. That is the voice of your soul. That is the scratch that awakens. That is the necessary death, so that truth may rise again. I want you to remember this: your soul was born to soar, not to endure in silence. And even if right now you are falling, breaking, or lost, you still carry light within you. You still have your own bow. You still have a choice. You are not finished because of what has passed. You are being prepared for something greater. A battle, yes, but not to destroy you. To awaken you. To help you see that what you once thought were your limits were only the starting line of your strength. What you once called loss was merely a detour guiding you toward what is real. And if today you hear these words, it's not by accident. The universe does not send signals to the wrong person. You are not here to understand me. You are here because deep down, you already know. It is time. If you are standing at the threshold between the old and the new, between darkness and light, between ending and beginning, I invite you to write a declaration for yourself. Not to show anyone, but to connect with the energy flowing through you. Write this: I am ready to never turn back again. Not for anyone. Not for a dream. But for yourself. Because your soul is awakening. Because destiny is calling. And because from this moment on, you choose to live as if the universe has placed its full trust in you. If your heart is still beating, if your mind still longs for something higher, deeper, truer, then you are not done yet. You are simply between the two most important chapters of your life. And the next chapter will not look like any you've written before. Because this time, you are no longer the one searching for the answer. You are the answer. Do not wait for someone to rescue you from the dark. Because true salvation begins when you look directly at your wound and whisper, I will not abandon myself ever again. That is when the battle begins. A sacred battle. A bloodless war that nonetheless transforms you from the inside out. And if you are a Sagittarius, you know this well: the most important battles never happen outside. They happen in the mind. In the heart. In that quiet decision that you will not back down, even if no one believes in you anymore. I have read hundreds of birth charts for people who carry Sagittarius energy. Some were born with Jupiter in the 9th house, the house of knowledge, faith, and great journeys. Others had the sun in Sagittarius falling into the 12th house, the house of the soul, of solitude, of awakening in the dark. But no matter how their charts differed, I always saw one thing in common. No one with Sagittarius energy goes through life lightly. They were born to face things, to endure, and then, to rise. Because the nature of this sign is evolution. They don't live just to live. They live to learn, to overcome, to reach for something higher than the ordinary self. Remember, in the 12-year cycle of Jupiter, the ruling planet of Sagittarius, there is always a phase where everything seems to collapse. That's when Jupiter squares Saturn, or moves through the 8th house, the house of death and transformation. You will feel like the universe is working against you. Everything that once supported you now feels like a burden. Relationships that once gave you meaning suddenly feel hollow. The work you were once passionate about no longer excites you. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a new self. The universe is purifying you. And the only thing you must do is not resist the process. You may want to turn back. You may begin to question everything. But don't forget, you didn't come to this earth to live safely. You came to awaken. And sometimes, awakening doesn't come in warm light, but through the deepest night. Because only in the dark can we hear the whisper of the soul. Be honest with me, have you ever felt like you were living as a guest in your own life? Have you ever smiled at others, but inside you were slowly falling apart? Have you ever asked God, why must I endure all of this? If yes, then you are standing very close to the threshold of change. Because only when the soul reaches its limit, can it open to a new path. I remember a Sagittarius once told me, I no longer want to believe in anything. But I also cannot live without faith. That sentence left me speechless. Because it wasn't just the voice of one person. It was the voice of a generation longing for something beyond logic. A generation that doesn't want to live just to pay bills. That doesn't want to die without ever truly being themselves. And if you're hearing me now, you might be one of them. A soul reclaiming its own truth. Sagittarius is the only zodiac sign that combines the fire element with the symbol of the half-human, half-beast. That means you do not only carry wild, impulsive energy, but also profound spiritual depth. You are a warrior, but also a sage. An inspirer, but also someone who has walked through the deepest nights. And what makes you extraordinary is not that you have never fallen, but that you always rise again, with your eyes still fixed on the horizon. I know, you're tired. But you still have something not everyone has, a reason to keep going. And there is nothing more sacred than a life lived in alignment with the soul. Reignite the fire in your heart. No matter how small it feels. No matter how many times others tried to extinguish it. Let it burn. Because it is the truest part of you. And only by living truthfully, can you avoid dying in a life of pretense. I want you to pause for a moment, not to think, but to feel. Feel what is rising within you. What part of you is whispering, I can't live like this any longer. That is the warning from the universe. That is the call of destiny. And if you dare to listen, the entire sky will rise to support you. Write it down for yourself, not for social media, not to prove anything. Write it down as a promise. A sacred commitment. Write, I am ready to step into the higher destiny my soul has always longed for. Because sometimes, a single affirmation written in faith holds more power than any prophecy in the stars. Be careful with a Sagittarius who no longer pretends. Because the moment they stop trying to please the world is the moment they become their truest self, and also their most dangerous. Not because they hurt others, but because they no longer allow anyone or anything to hurt them ever again. I used to believe Sagittarius were carefree dreamers, free spirits who refused to be tied down. But after many years walking alongside souls born under this sign, I understood this. Behind their radiant smile are silent battles no one sees. They don't break from words. They don't fall from loss. But they will reach their limit when they are forced to live against their soul just to keep the peace. Sagittarius can stay silent for a long time, endure incredibly well. But once they decide not to compromise anymore, the world around them will change forever. Have you ever seen the eyes of someone who has stopped pretending? They no longer seek approval. They don't need validation or comfort. They carry the gaze of a soul that has chosen truth, even if it costs everything. And in today's world, where most are taught to be reasonable, to maintain an image, to stay soft to survive, the raw truthfulness of a Sagittarius who has stopped pretending is terrifying to many. I was once the person standing behind a door that had just closed, not understanding how a Sagittarius could walk away so quietly, when just yesterday, they loved as if there were no tomorrow. I used to think they were selfish, that they only cared about themselves, that they let go too easily. But time, the patient teacher, gave me a lesson I will never forget. The one who walks away is not the one who stopped loving. They just can't keep living a lie anymore. They can't keep smiling in a relationship that has lost its light. Can't keep listening when they are no longer understood. Can't keep yielding when their soul is screaming from suffocation. If you are a Sagittarius, or if you love a Sagittarius, you need to know this: they are not the type to dramatize. But if they start speaking the truth, it's because they've endured far too much. And if they walk away, it's because they've fought in silence more times than you can imagine. Once, in a personal astrology session, a middle-aged Sagittarius woman told me through tears, "I used to live to maintain a family, a position in society, the image of a good wife, a model mother. But I never lived for myself." She had sacrificed her youth to uphold a stability that her soul had never truly belonged to. And one day, when Pluto formed a conjunction with her natal Jupiter, everything collapsed. She no longer wanted to carry the burden of a life she didn't choose. She walked away. To the world, she was someone who gave up. But to me, she was someone reborn. That's the danger of Sagittarius. They don't announce. They don't blame. They just walk away, quietly, decisively, fully awake. And in that action lies a profound message. I choose myself. That's what terrifies people. Because how many of us can truly choose ourselves, if it means losing everything? The lessons I've learned through all these years weren't found in astrology books. They were in the movements of brave souls like Sagittarius. I learned that living truthfully is not selfish. It's a sacred obligation each of us owes to our own being. And if you have to walk away from places that once felt like home, from people who once held you, from dreams that once gave you purpose, just to keep your truth intact, then you are doing the right thing. I know that at a certain age, especially for those passing through midlife, we begin to question everything. What once felt certain now trembles. Relationships once believed to be forever now feel like exhausting performances. And we are forced to choose, to continue surviving in silence, or to live truthfully and walk into the unknown. Sagittarius is not built to pretend for long. They can endure, but eventually, their soul will demand a choice. If today you're standing at a crossroads with a difficult decision, if you feel lonely because you chose to live truthfully, if you're misunderstood for walking away, know this: you are not wrong. You are simply growing up. And true maturity always begins with unfiltered honesty. I want you to do one thing for yourself, something small, but powerful enough to shake the entire universe within you. Write this down. I choose myself, even if I have to walk alone. Write it not for praise, not for display. Write it so your soul knows that you had the courage to choose the path of light. There are deaths that bury no one, yet they cover the entire past we once clung to. And there are rebirths that need no cries of birth, but begin with one slow, deep breath. When we dare to look at ourselves without flinching. I call that the rebirth of the soul, and it happens every time someone dares to let go of an outdated self and step onto the path that truly belongs to them. For Sagittarius, this journey doesn't come gently. It comes after they have fallen. After they have broken. After they've lost their way among ideals that turned out to be only beautiful illusions. I used to think maturity was learning to hold on to everything. But the more I live, the more I realize, true maturity is learning to let go, with grace. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of appearances. Letting go of yourself, the outdated version that no longer fits. And in that moment, we begin to see light again. Not the light that comes from the outside, but the light from within. The light from the soul that has always been patiently waiting, like a father standing in the dark, waiting for his child to return. In astrology, Jupiter, the ruling planet of Sagittarius, is not only the planet of expansion, but also the planet of faith. Every time Jupiter moves into the 12th house, the house of endings, of secrets, of deep healing, that is when Sagittarius is called to shed their glamorous exterior and return to their spiritual roots. No more running. No more conquering. But facing. Listening. Purifying. Becoming as clear as the light they were born to carry. For many, the 12th house is the house of loneliness, of disorientation. But for me, it is the place where the most evolved souls are refined. And if you are a Sagittarius passing through that phase, I want you to know, you are not being abandoned. You are being prepared. You are not being lost. You are being reshaped, deeply, divinely, and purposefully. I once read the chart of a man, a Sagittarius, entering the age of 58. When Jupiter had just completed a full return. He had lived his entire life to become someone successful in the eyes of others. A wealthy businessman, a model father, a husband admired by many. But he came to see me, with eyes full of emptiness, and asked a question I've never forgotten. Why is it that I have everything, yet feel like I've never truly lived? That question awakened something important in me. The truth is, we can build an empire on the outside, but if the inside is hollow, then every achievement is only the echo of a soul slowly dying. I tell you this story not to frighten you, but to help you realize, awakening is never too late. The universe has no concept of too late. Every moment you return to yourself is a miracle. Every decision to live truthfully is a rebirth. And every sincere word you speak to yourself is a step toward the light. I used to think strong people were those who never fell. But now, I believe strong people are those who know they've fallen, and still choose to rise. With softer hands, with a more honest heart, with eyes that see the world through humility and gratitude. And no one does that more beautifully than those who carry the soul of Sagittarius. You were not born to live halfway. You did not come into this world just to play a role. You are a messenger of light. A bearer of wisdom, hope, and faith to the darkest places. But before you can illuminate others, you must learn to rekindle the light within yourself. And that only happens after you've allowed the outdated parts of yourself to die. I want you to pause for a moment. Not to think, but to feel. Feel what inside you is whispering, I no longer belong where I used to. Feel what part of you is asking to be released. It might be a relationship. A role. An expectation. A dream that was once beautiful, but now feels like a burden. Do not be afraid when the old begins to fall away. Because the universe never takes anything without giving something better in return. I know that letting go is not easy. But holding on to something that no longer fits is the true death. The death of a dream. Of faith. Of the soul inside you that is begging to be brought back to life. Write it down as a sacred ritual. As a promise to the universe and to yourself. I am ready to be reborn. I am ready to release the version of me that is no longer true. And I choose to step into a new destiny, with an open heart and eyes no longer filled with fear. Write not because someone expects it. Write because it is the signal to the universe that you are ready. And when a soul is ready, every door will open. You may not believe this right now, but I want you to listen slowly. Because this message does not come from me. It comes from something deeper, older, and vaster than anything we've ever known. The universe never breaks a soul unless it intends to make that soul greater. And you, a Sagittarius, are no exception. You are the living proof of that truth. I used to believe the universe chose the strong to carry great missions. But after many years sitting quietly with star charts, with unfinished stories, with hearts that seemed to have lost all faith, I realized. The universe does not choose the strong. It chooses the real. Those who dare to feel. Those who dare to fall. Those who dare to face what most people spend their lives avoiding. And then, those people, after it all, become light. Have you ever wondered why the life of a Sagittarius is always full of trials? Why, among countless options, you are the one who never quite fits into any mold? Because you weren't born to fit in. You were born to expand. You were born to break boundaries, not through meaningless rebellion, but through awakening from within. In astrology, every major cycle of Jupiter lasts about 12 years. And with every cycle, Sagittarius is elevated to a higher level by the universe. But to rise, you must release lightly. Let go of what once was a foundation, but now has become a shackle. Let go of what once was truth, but now is only a belief you've outgrown. Let go of yourself, the outdated version that thought it needed approval to be worthy. I've seen Sagittarius individuals at 40, 50, even 70 suddenly awaken. They leave stable careers, walk away from decades-long marriages, turn their backs on everything just to pursue one thing: truth. And do you know what happens when they find it? They no longer resemble anyone else. They become calm, but not cold. Strong, but not aggressive. Radiant, without needing attention. They simply exist, like a flame that has burned through many storms, still gently warming the souls who've lost their way. If you are entering that stage, where all that once felt familiar is now falling apart, I want you to know, this is not the end. This is the opening of your most sacred journey. A journey where you no longer have to run. No longer have to prove. No longer have to hold on. But instead, you walk forward, with steady steps and quiet eyes, as if the entire sky is waiting for your arrival. I once heard a spiritual teacher say, when your soul is ready, the universe will send you everything you need. But you must be willing to lose what you want, to receive what you truly deserve. That sentence changed me. And today, I offer it back to you, not as advice, but as a reminder. You deserve a life that is true. You deserve a love that requires no mask. You deserve relationships that nourish your soul, not just fill your calendar. And you deserve to live each day as if it were a note in the symphony of the Creator, where you are no longer trying to keep up, but leading by the light of your own awakening. Sagittarius was not born to run away, but to go deep. Not to surpass others, but to rise above the self. Not to win a race, but to awaken a generation still asleep. And if today, amidst all the chaos, you are still here, listening to these words, I want you to know that you are not alone. There are millions of other souls walking this awakening path with you. Also letting go. Also grieving. Also learning to live unafraid of their own light. I don't know who you are. I don't know where your story began. But I know one thing, if something inside you is still resonating as you hear these words, then you are ready. Ready to stop repeating the same mistakes. Ready to love without carrying fear. Ready to step into the destiny that was written for you, before you were even born. And if there is one last thing I want you to do, let it be this. Right now, as a ceremony to open your next chapter. If you feel your soul has just crossed through an invisible gate, write this down as a vow to the Creator. I am ready to live aligned with the light my soul was born to carry. I am ready to release fear, pretense, and everything that once kept me small. I am ready to step into the journey my soul has always known as real. The universe is waiting for your confirmation. Not in words, but in the deep presence of an awakened soul. And if what I've shared has touched something deep within you, like this video, share it with someone who may also be on this journey. Because when a light is shared, it doesn't just save one person. It awakens an entire world.